See, when you grow up, you have a million friends, 1,000 people you can call for a house party, hundreds of people you can call if you want to go out for a cruise or chill or wherever. But as you get older, you realise that you can fit all your good friends on one hand. See, what's happening is life is distilling, concentrating, and reducing the amount of friends to the friends that are real, genuine, viable friends. Friends that you'll spend the rest of your life in contact with, whether it be daily, weekly, or yearly. Now, it's these friends that you're going to need if you find yourself the victim of manipulation. It's these friends that you're going to need when you fall on times of need, when the chips are down, when it's raining outside, when the world turns into a land of confusion. It's these friends that you're going to turn to and ask for guidance, comfort, and support. Today's topic is about manipulation. And unfortunately, this kind of psychological attack requires to have genuine, real friends for you to fall back on, like the ones I just described. It's absolutely imperative to have a trusted network of friends and people who love you and want you to prosper. You must be 100% certain that these friends or people want you to do good in life. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people out there that want you to do good, just not better than them. We're going to go through a list of manipulation tactics that abusers use, and that's exactly what they are. Make no mistake, they are abusers. But I'm informing you about these manipulations because a lot of these tactics can be dispelled once realization is achieved. Once the victim recognizes the tactic, the abuse. I'm not telling you these tactics to arm you with the knowledge to go out there and use it, because this would make you an abuser. A wise old uncle of mine once told me, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. So with that being said, let's jump in. Emotional blackmail. The manipulator exploits the emotions, your goodwill, your empathic nature to get what they want. Guilt, fear, shame, obligation, debt. They're all targeted. The goal is to force the victim through a sense of responsibility or their general good nature to act in the interest of the manipulator. The manipulator will create a situation whereby they are placed in a compromising situation seemingly because of the fault of the victim. This, in turn, will make the victim go above and beyond in a bid to alleviate their own guilt and ensure the manipulator's sense of well-being. Now, this will cause the victim to go above and beyond in a bid to alleviate their own guilt, ensuring the manipulator is being compensated for their situation caused by their inactions or actions. An example of this can be a simple cold. Through not turning up on time, be it your fault or not, the manipulator catches a cold or flu. Now, the victim is obligated to undertake all chores and activities as the cold was not their fault. Phrases such as, "If you love me, you'd do it. I can't believe you'd let me do this alone. But it's your fault I got sick," will be employed, and they'll be constant reminders of how ill they feel when in actuality they're living life and doing normal day-to-day activities behind closed doors. It doesn't take much for you to be able to gauge exactly how ill they are simply by an elongated phone call, by the activities they undertake, by contradictive behaviour, for example, activities that they're not able to undertake, yet they undertake something else a little bit more strenuous. Recognise it for what it is: emotional blackmail. Although the example here is rather tame, this tactic has far-reaching effects and many levels of seriousness. Don't fall for it. Use your logic, weigh up their activities, and understand you are simply a utensil. False praise creates a sense of enthusiasm and zeal to help and please the manipulator. An example of this could be the manipulator telling the victim that they're so attractive, that they stand out from everyone else, that they have an unparalleled ability, even though the manipulator doesn't truly recognize that ability. Then shortly after, something like this will follow. I have something that I've always wanted to do, and only you and the way that you are can help me with this. The victim feels indebted and doesn't want to let down the manipulator, lest all the compliments stop and the acknowledgements of all their abilities be invalidated. You must use your moral compass here. Trust your feelings. Do the compliments come too much, too quickly, too fast? Are all of those words and things that the manipulator is saying too good to be true? Because most of the time, they are. Triangulation. Triangulation is when the manipulator involves a third person to bolster their objections, viewpoints, or arguments. The manipulator will share distorted or warped or incomplete information with the third party in a bid to bring them to their side. I mean, it does tend to give credence to an argument if someone else also has the same opinion. We tend to think that the majority is correct. An example of this could be in the workplace. The manipulator may share some information, plans of one employee, opinions said by said employee, that don't even directly affect the third person, yet spin it in such a way that the third person may become offended, competitive, or insecure. Thus, the manipulator is building an alliance with the third person, who will then support the manipulator in the actions he or she is taking. Perhaps it's a family dynamic where the mother says bad things about one sibling to another and good things about them. Again, building an alliance and leaving the other sibling out in the cold. The victim is aware the side that the third person is taking, and the third person is angry or at best more aligned with the manipulator. It leaves the victim out in the cold, lonely, isolated, and forces them to pander to the manipulator in a bid to repair the relationship. It also puts the victim in a cycle of perpetual doubt, as if two people have the same opinion, the victim must be wrong, right? The victim must recognize what's happened. A way to identify this is to evaluate why the third person has taken a strong stance against them. Have you wronged them? If not, then they may have been coerced. There's nothing wrong with talking to the third person alone, directly, in a bid to verify the information he or she has received. And never, ever enter into an adversarial three-way conversation. Time pressure. Okay, this tactic's usually employed when a manipulator wants you to make a decision in their favour. The manipulator will come to you, presenting a situation that requires the utmost urgency. The choice has to be made now, immediately, lest you incur dire consequences. The strategy here is to force the victim to make a decision, a rash decision, without having the time to evaluate, seek advice, or research. This will obviously evoke feelings of loss and guilt in the victim and force the victim to make a very hasty decision, often to their detriment and to the benefit of the manipulator. It exploits the inherent fear of loneliness and loss that all humans have. An example of this could be when person 1 wants a relationship with person 2. Person 2 has friendly relations with others and is going to decide who she or he wants to pursue in a full-time exclusive relationship. Now, I know it sounds callous, but what's dating for? You're testing each other out to ascertain the viability of a long-term relationship. They say, if you put all your eggs in one basket, there's a 50-50 chance of success. But if you put your eggs in many baskets, it increases the probability of picking the right person. Just saying. But be very careful. As such, a manipulator usually pulls back their desires and affections anyway, as they will see you as merely a conquest. A notch on their proverbial belt, which will eventually strangle them. You are not to be pressured into making a decision quickly. Very few decisions are. This kind of action is prevalent in impulsive people. And when people are described as impulsive, ask yourself, what state are their lives in? Recognize that this is a manipulation. Why does the choice have to be made right now? Don't succumb to pressure. Take the time to evaluate, because in time, more information or observations will surface, giving you more insight to make a more informed decision. If somebody's forcing you to do this right now, it's a red flag. Run. It'll only get worse once the manipulator sees that you succumb to it. The silent treatment. The manipulator intentionally shuts down, refuses to communicate with the victim. This is a particularly insidious form of manipulation, as the manipulator knows that they can only employ this tactic once he's ascertained that the victim has developed some degree of dependency upon them. They'll withdraw, causing a devastation to the psyche of the victim. This leaves the victim insecure, anxious, and can devastate their mental health as they become desperate for resolution and have great difficulties thinking straight and concentrating on the tasks at hand. The victim will often make over-the-top gestures to reconnect and even perform duties that they would have usually deemed as unacceptable. Silence can be deadly, as it capitalizes on the human need for company and interaction and validation. This is a deadly form of manipulation and must not be tolerated. You must never beg for attention. Carefully evaluate the situation and meticulously go over events. If you did no wrong, then the first attempt at contact was enough. Never continue trying, as this will breed desperation. Projection. This form of manipulation was dragged into the light, kicking and screaming, by the famous Sigmund Freud's daughter, Anna Freud, on their theory of psychoanalysis and psychodynamic therapy. This tactic is when the manipulator ascribes their own thoughts, feelings, desires, and actions onto the victim. This stems from the manipulator's inability to accept or reconcile with their own thoughts, actions, or feelings. They can accuse the victim of flirting or outright adultery when it is them who are having such thoughts or performed such actions. An example can be going to the gym and training as hard as you can, and the manipulator may accuse you of doing something untoward, or just not actually going to the gym. This can come in the form of an outright accusation or even a subtle suggestion. But a skilled manipulator will accuse you knowing that you have no concrete evidence that you were where you were. Why? I mean, you went to the gym, you had your great workout, your muscles are pumped to the nines, and you're going to be walking funny for the next 2 days. No funny business, because you went to the gym and had a leg workout. What is wrong with you people? I mean, you went to the gym, you had a workout, you've returned home innocently. You haven't had an entanglement with anyone or anything. So why and what's the benefit of projection? It's a coping mechanism. There are studies that demonstrate that nobody's memory is 20/20, that people forget traumatic events. But even when they forget said event, the effect still remains. Projection's a conscious or unconscious method that the brain employs to protect you from having to deal with said memories, often employing delusion to assist in a denial of process. I mean, being angry or upset with somebody else is a hell of a lot easier to deal with than being angry or upset with yourself. The effect of projection can make the victim constantly defensive, confused, and guilty. This will make the victim weaker and cause them to undertake certain gestures or activities to ensure the manipulator feels safe and to not worry. Again, pandering to the manipulator's wants and desires. Emotional dependence upon the manipulator is increased. This can also result in the victim relinquishing some activities like going to the gym, seeing friends, alone time, in a bid to always satisfy the manipulator's suspicions as to where, when, and what they are doing. This will make the victim constantly defensive, confused, and guilty. This will make the victim weaker and cause them to undertake certain gestures or activities to ensure the manipulator feels safe and not worrying. Again, pandering to the manipulator's wants and desires. It's absolutely imperative to maintain a firm grasp of reality. Know who you are and what you're doing. Maintain your boundaries. Monitor your own behaviour. Know that what you're doing is the norm. The double bind. This tactic is employed to make the victim doubt themselves and their feelings, to generate anxiety and inaction, to confuse and to control the victim. The manipulator will communicate conflicting information to the victim. When the victim performs either one, they're chastised, ridiculed, or rejected for performing either. An example of this is when a woman tells you that she wants to be hugged and shown signs of affection, to hold hands and be physically comforted when upset. But when the victim tries to comfort the manipulator, she pulls back or removes his hand from her and discards it. Or he's simply told to be more masculine and that he's far too sensitive. This is a double bind, as if he does not comfort her or show signs of affection, he's blatantly disregarding her requests and disrespecting her, thus leading to more chastising. And when he does comfort her and demonstrate sensitivity, he's made to feel like this behaviour is inappropriate and not becoming of a man. The victim becomes confused and static, as any action can result in negativity. This will lead the victim generating feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and longing for the manipulator's affirmation. You must recognise this tactic and act the way that you act. You must act assertively and communicate with examples. You must inform them that you will act according to your own behaviour and as per the situation requires. And if you're not that confrontational, seek help. Gaslighting. Woo. Now this is as insidious as triangulation. The term comes from an old black and white movie that was filmed in 1944 and directed by George Cukor. It follows the struggles of a woman having their reality and mental health completely shattered by a man intent of relieving her of her riches via nervous breakdown. The manipulator works to destroy your sense of reality by denying certain events ever came to pass. They will warp facts and play down your feelings via diminished severity. They'll use private information that you shared against you as evidence to back you into the corner and question your own perceptions. This in turn will lead the victim to constantly ask others if what they perceive is indeed correct and to validate their views. And as the manipulator is usually the one closest to them, they will listen to the manipulator even as a gesture or a demonstration of commitment and solidarity. The effect of this is massively devastating. It can lead to serious mental health problems, anxiety, seclusion, and a gross lack of confidence in your own opinions and perceptions and memories. An example of this can be you're out in a bar and you speak to a member of the opposite sex about something innocent and mundane like the frustration of not being served on time by the barman. The manipulator may later accuse you of cheating and comment on your body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, blah blah blah. They can compound this further by means of triangulation by bringing in a third party to warrant what they're saying. Now this can really drive the knife home. The victim assumes that even their passive conversation is flirting and overcompensates by never responding or interacting with anybody else. This is an intolerable situation. The victim must exit. This is a fight that the victim should not be engaged in. This demonstrates willing and conscious thought by the manipulator with only malicious intent. The victim must keep records of conversations. Some say even record conversations, but I advise against that because you're bordering on legality. And even when such evidence is presented to the manipulator, a skilled manipulator can use that as an excuse to ascribe more negativity towards the victim. This type of manipulation requires strength because you simply have to leave, or at the very least maintain a distance, which in turn may result in feelings of isolation and loneliness. You must consult friends. False social approval. This is a very Machiavellian tactic. The manipulator tricks the victim into thinking that they're making the correct choice and thus adhering to social norms and expectations. By maneuvering the victim into thinking a choice is adherent to popular opinion. Women are particularly susceptible to this form of manipulation as they are more social creatures and in some cases seem to share a hive mind, whereas men are inherently more defiant and independent of thought. You can see this kind of manipulation in advertising all over the TV in the form of fake testimonials or YouTube ads where it says, "This product is disrupting the industry." But a more harmful way that this manipulation is used in the example of teenagers. When a girl, or mainly a boy, is trying to persuade another into the act of copulation and claims, "Everybody's done it. You're going to look weird if you don't do it. Such and such was teased because she's still a virgin," or something along those lines. You are an individual, an autonomous body, capable of your own choices, free of coercion. How do you feel about the decision? Can you really put your faith in society, a structure that is falling apart by the seams in real time? Random and impulsive behaviour. The manipulator acts strange, impulsively, generous, calculated, kind, manic, calm and collected at seemingly random and different times, rendering them completely and utterly unpredictable. The victim is left in the eye of a hurricane, unsure of his or her environment, unsure on how to act or react to the whims of the manipulator. The victim will become anxious due to not understanding and not being able to gauge the manipulator. The manipulator uses this tactic in relationships to create an environment of uncertainty and reliance on the manipulator. The victim tries to constantly please the manipulator in a bid to regulate their behaviour and avoid emotional damage. It is not your obligation to temper his foul behaviour. This is simply a manipulation, that's all. You see those hills? Run, go. Because should you stay, this has the potential for long-term and even permanent psychological damage. Do not confront them about their behaviour, as such discourse could be simply what the manipulator desires. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a Drippin's reaction. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of the video. Let me know if there's any subjects you want me to cover, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks.